um, I am drinking completely undoctored tea because I was eating fudge and I needed like some kind of, this is the straight man for the
Yeah,
extremely sweet and milky fudge.
that sounds delightful. I am drinking my usual water with electrolyte powder in it that I've been drinking for like the last, man, it's got to be around a year because it was one of the things I was doing before I got my CPAP to try and help with the fatigue.
Yeah. Does it help?
It does, and it also just generally makes me feel better. Like if I'm drinking plain water, I can tell the difference. So,
Right.
and it's watermelon flavored.
I've got the red patches on my face get bigger in the winter.
It's that dry air. It's a killer.
And it's cold. I go
Mm-hmm.
out and do things today. We went downtown, checked out the Colorado Springs tattered cover with Blue. Oh, and we've got a Taste of Jerusalem or a Jerusalem Cafe. I think it's Taste of Jerusalem around the corner from the tattered cover. It was all right, but oh, this was so funny. I went up to the counter with my menu and said, is this a thing that is gluten free? And the dude at the counter said, we can make it gluten free. I was like, great, I want to order that. And he was like, can I finish taking care of this gentleman first? And I swear I hadn't seen him. It was just this guy appeared randomly, and I was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. Yeah, of course. But then while Blue and Jason and I were all at the counter ordering, the dude took his drink and went and sat at the booth where we had been sitting. Like we hadn't left any of our stuff there. We'd stood up to come order and he sat down at our table. And so I don't know if he's as oblivious as me or if I was being punished for being oblivious. But in either case, none of us were willing to make any kind of fuss about it. We just sat at a different table that wasn't as nice, and we were like, okay.
I see. I would be inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt and be like, "Well, not just me.
Not just me. Like, yep.
We are invisible to each other."
It's just and we were like, the reason I'd rushed to the counter to be like, this is what I want to order is because I needed to go to the bathroom and I had my purse in hand. And as I apologized, I was holding my purse. I was like, should I take it back to the table or just hand it to Jason? And I ended up just handing it to Jason so that none of our stuff was at that table. And I'm like, if he was that oblivious, then yeah, it's not just me. And if it was a
um,
subtle punishment, I do not mind. That's fine too. That's okay. Passive aggression at its finest, I guess. None of us were really butthurt about it. It was just so fucking funny. And to completely change the subject, I have my Walking to Mordor map.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! You can't tell from here, but there's a lion on it.
Agreed, you cannot, but I intuited the presence of the line.
Yes. And
I'm
the lion
pleased
is.
to say that I have made it 3 miles in the last week.
Yay! Is that good?
It's good for me.
Totally fine. That's really good. Good job.
Thank you.
I will check at the end of this day because my Fitbit organizes things by week, starting with Sunday, and the
Mm-hmm.
year started on a Sunday. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll just open up the app and it'll be like, you walked blah 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 steps, and I'll divide by 2,000 and then fill in the little line.
I found a website where you can track a walking route and it'll tell you how long it was. So,
Nice.
yeah, I
That's really
walked the
good.
entire length of the 16th Street Mall and halfway back, and that's about a mile.
That's, it feels a lot longer than that.
It does. Okay, I didn't walk the entire length. I walked from Wine Coop to California. So,
It's still pretty far.
it's pretty far considering it was 23 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Speaking of faces getting red in the winter, I got inside. I looked like I'd been sunburned because my face was so red.
When I was going to the art institute, I broke my toe at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to keep it elevated for a couple of days, but by the third or fourth day, I was going so insane with cabin fever that I got a babysitter in and decided to take a walk down the mall with a couple of school friends. I think Aaron and Stefan and I walked the entire length. And at first I was like, oh, I'm out of the house. And it was in winter too. So like February. Like, yay, I'm walking. And after a few blocks, I was like, my foot's starting to hurt. And after a few more blocks, I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to take my shoe off. And then we made it all the way down to that thing that looks like a ship got buried and the spar is sticking out of the ground. And I was like, I am in incredible amounts of pain. Thank you guys for being here with me for that. I swear I'll talk about something else now. And they were like, no, you won't.
Oh man. Yeah, I was not intending to walk the entire length of the mall, or a good solid portion of it in 23-degree weather, but the mall is actually shut down right now because they're doing some kind of big overhaul project. So the mall ride's not running, or it's running, but it's not running down 16th.
That sucks.
Yeah, so I found that out by not seeing a mall ride for the entire way.
Just when I see it, I'll just hop on it, and then you did.
Well, and then the sidewalk was closed, and then I was diverted over to 15th. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm just walking.
Is Tarantula still over there?
Yes.
Oh.
Tarantulas is like the only thing that's still there. Leela's gone. The bus stop, or like the bus terminal thing next to the empty lot is gone. All kinds of stuff's gone.
That is frustrating. Yeah, sehr gut als Zeit is a thing. Not that we were speaking of German, but I recently learned that there is such a thing, such a word in German. You know, Schadenfreude is, of course, a German well, it's a universal concept. It's a German word, and but apparently, feeling happy for someone's success, even when it doesn't benefit you, is Freudenfreude.
Oh, that makes sense, because feeling bad for someone else's embarrassment, or like embarrassed for someone else's Freund shaman.
Ah, thank you, German.
Ah, German, you got so many great words.
Yeah.
Not
Especially
at all related to German, but just related to what we're doing here. I am, of course, appropriately dressed.
I need to make that publicly available. I hid it because I didn't want you to look at my Redbubble and discover it before Christmas.
I was deliberately not looking at your Redbubble before Christmas because I thought my Christmas present might be on there.
I was smart enough that you wouldn't have seen it. You know what, though? I got like 2 or 3 different orders for a sticker of the Every Day I Worry All Day. So apparently that was a thing that needed to happen.
That's excellent.
Now, where the crap speckle are we? Oh, this is... I've been keeping my fellowship in here so that I could get the details right on my paintings. Like, I was like, what is Goldberry wearing when they first walk into the house? And what color are the water lilies? Are they pink? What does he mention? Of course he mentions, for the record.
Indeed. Are they pink?
They are white.
Okay, that's what I thought.
They're described as white when Bombadil's carrying them, and also in the bowls in the bowls scattered about the floor are white water lilies. This happened with Farmer Maggot too. I did my whole painting, and then I stood back and looked at it and went, the main subject of this painting is too small. But fortunately, my watercolors are kind of messy, and so when I go in Photoshop and circle an object and make it bigger and, you know, cover the gaps, it looks fine. There isn't a like super bad discrepancy. It does mean, though, that if anybody wanted an original because they saw the art and went, ooh, that's wonderful, there isn't one.
Well, they'll survive.
Yeah.
But
anyway, Ugh. And she is also wearing a green dress shot with silver like beads of dew with a gold belt that is shaped like iris blossoms. So, like, yeah, you don't have to make anything up. I did try to give her Nefertiti features with like yellow braids instead of just yellow hair because I thought that would look really awesome. And she fought me. Her face, so I wanted this sort of like chin tilted up and arms out and do you know how many ways you can mess up a chin tilted up?
A lot?
At one point she was all nostril. And there were and even the most up tilted eyes tilt down when your face does this because faces aren't a flat plane. So I would try to kind of give her up tilted elvish eyes and then she would look like she had Botox and and a smile at that angle is even worse because there's a huge difference emotionally between and but artistically there isn't one. She was going a lot of the time.
Don Bombadil's beautiful wife with her giant nostrils and her Botox eyes and her.
The hobbit stopped on the threshold like folk that have just been accosted by some kind of weird Botox demon. Speaking of the Botox demon, have you seen RRR?
What's that?
RRR is a 3-hour movie that comes out of India, Bollywood. Is it just? It's so good. It is the best movie, like objectively the best movie I have ever seen. It may not be my favorite forever or anything, but it's still the best. It's so good. I can't even. Everything about this movie is at an 11. At one point, a dude throws a leopard at another dude.
Okay, sold.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are many great things about it, but leopard throwing was really all I needed.
It's about the greatest bromance in the history of ever, and they communicate non-verbally, and they're like and everything, there's fires and explosions. A guy throws a motorcycle at another guy twice. This happens, but both times it's story appropriate. And the Botox demon is one of the villains. I mean, it's supposed to be taking place in like 1920s India with the British government, and every British person you meet, except the sweet young woman who is one of the love interests. But every other one of them is an absolute pig that you would cheer to see a motorcycle hurled at or a leopard.
So it's quite realistic, is what you're saying.
Quite realistic, except in that one of the villains is a woman who has clearly gotten Botox, which wasn't available in the 1920s, as far as I know. But she's still. Oh, her performance is so evil. And there's a kidnapped child, and there's plot twists, and I mean, and there's dance numbers and really beautiful songs, and at one point it devolves into torture porn, which is kind of weird, but like it has everything. It has so much of everything. I want to watch it again.
Is it on Netflix?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Do it. Do it.
I will. Well, I watched some like Bollywood stuff and thoroughly enjoyed it. There was one I really wanted to love because it was about a heist where the thieves had to learn to dance because they had to steal this thing in an international dance contest. And it was so great, except that the hero was a total jackass to the love interest. And so the whole time he's like being a jerk because she's a professional dancer, which is like a low class thing. And so he's like being a jerk to her about that the whole time, and his best friend keeps comforting her, and I'm like, girl, forget him, marry the best friend,
please. Yeah, no, I need, if you watch it, I need you to text me and then just give me a running commentary because Yeah. I need to know what you think of all of this nonsense. We had ourselves a intermission towards the end of the first act because we had other things to do. And it can be what like it has acts. It has acts that close with a big graphic thing. It's um you don't have to fatigue yourself by watching it all at once. I I can't even. The animals are all CG and they don't pretend that they're not all CG.
That's a good choice.
But there's never a single like they've got dozens of Chekhov's guns floating around, and every single one of them gets fired. Like there's not a single plot beat that doesn't satisfyingly not repeat, but get. Oh well, it's good.
One of them is a Chekhov's leopard.
The dude who gets hit by the first flying motorcycle is a dude who was beating one of our main characters earlier for fixing his motorcycle wrong. So that was literally like the most poetic justice you'll ever see.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, be prepared to loathe the English there. I mean, more.
Yeah, I was gonna say about that.
What you knitting?
Well, the first certain amount of a sweater.
Right now, it just looks like short shorts.
It'd be more of a mini skirt. There's no legs.
It's hard to tell from this angle. Where
Well,
the
and the
crap were
knitting
we?
needle's kind of messed up. So he found Frodo, and then Frodo put a cloak on, and they agreed they were gonna have to steal pants and stuff from the orcs. And then there was a section break right there.
Ah, Elbereth, what the elves say. No orc would say that.
Exactly. By the way, the title of this episode is Stealing Pants from Orcs, and the description is Step 2, question mark, question mark, question mark. Step 3, throw a ring in Mount Doom.
Ah, yes. Hobbits are the original underwear gnomes. Frodo sat for a while and shivered, dreadful fears chasing one another through his mind. Then he got up, drew the grey elven cloak about him, and to keep his mind occupied began to walk to and fro, prying and peering into every corner of his prison. You all right there?
Yes, I was trying to not knock my laptop over while I pulled it closer.
It was not very long, though fear made it seem an hour at least, before he heard Sam's voice calling softly from below, Elbereth! Elbereth! Frodo let down the light ladder. Thanks, Jonold. He let down the light ladder.
Merry Yellow Berry, oh man.
Up came Sam, puffing, heaving a great bundle on his head. He let it fall with a thud. Quick now, Mr. Frodo, he said. I've had a bit of a search to find anything small enough for the likes of us. We'll have to make do, but we must hurry. I've met nothing alive, and I've seen nothing, but I'm not easy. I think this place is being watched. I can't explain it, but, well, it feels to me as if one of those foul flying riders was about, up in the blackness where he can't be seen. He opened the bundle. Frodo looked in disgust at the contents, but there was nothing for it. He had to put the things on or go naked. There were long, hairy breeches of some unclean beast fell, and a tunic of dirty leather. He drew them on. Over the tunic went a coat of stout ring mail, short for a full-sized orc, too long for Frodo, and heavy. About it he clasped a belt, at which there hung a short sheath holding a broad-bladed stabbing sword. Sam had brought several orc helmets. One of them fitted Frodo well enough, a black cap with iron rim and iron hoops, covered with leather upon which the evil eye was painted in red above the beak-like nose guard.
Here come the bird people.
Why did you choose that, Elijah? Because it's book appropriate. The Morgul stuff, Gorbak's gear, was a better fit and better made, said Sam. But it wouldn't do, I guess, to go carrying his tokens into Mordor. Not after this business here. Well, there you are, Mr. Frodo. A perfect little orc, if I may make so bold. At least you would be if we could cover your face with a mask, give you longer arms, and make you bow-legged. This will hide some of the telltales. He put a large black cloak round Frodo's shoulders. Now you're ready. You can pick up a shield as we go. What about you, Sam? Said Frodo. Aren't we going to match? Well, Mr. Frodo, I've been thinking, said Sam. I'd best not leave any of my stuff behind, and we can't destroy it. And I can't wear orc mail over all my clothes, can I? You can, you just aren't going to.
Look, you wouldn't want to either.
No. The other thing is Sam could have given Frodo his hobbit clothes, and he could have worn the hideous untanned leathers, etc. But I'm kind of glad that he's not that giving tree, like, you know?
Well, that, and strategically speaking, if he did that, because Frodo's the ring bearer, if they came across someone, Frodo would be more likely to be searched as a prisoner than as an orc guard of a prisoner.
It's true. I'll just have to cover up. He knelt down and carefully folded his elven cloak. It went into a surprisingly small roll. Then he put into his pack that lay on the floor. Standing up, he cast another black cloak about his shoulders. There, he said. Now we match, near enough. Now we must be off. I can't go all the way at a run, Sam, said Frodo with a wry smile. I hope you've made inquiries about inns along the road, or have you forgotten about food and drink? See, Frodo in the book is so fucking badass. I'm sorry. I love you, Elijah. I love the way the movie was made and written and all. I just really... He's making jokes. It's like the Tolkien version of I love you, I know. We're about to die in a hideous place. Made inquiries about inns. Save me, but so I had, said Sam. He whistled in dismay. Bless me, Mr. Frodo, but you've gone and made me that hungry and thirsty. I don't know when drop or morsel last passed my lips. I'd forgotten it trying to find you. But let me think. Last time I looked, I'd got about enough of that whey bread, and of what Captain Faramir gave us, to keep me on my legs for a couple of weeks at a pinch. But if there's a drop left in my bottle, there's no more. That's not going to be enough for two, nohow. Don't orcs eat, and don't they drink? Or do they just live on foul air and poison? No, they eat and drink, Sam. The shadow that bred them can only mock, it cannot make, not real new things of its own. I don't think it gave life to the orcs, it only ruined them and twisted them. And if they are to live at all, they have to live like other living creatures. Foul waters and foul meats they'll take if they can get no better, but not poison. They've fed me, so I'm better off than you. There must be food and water somewhere in this place. But there's no time to look for them, said Sam. Well, things are a bit better than you think, said Frodo. I have had a bit of luck while you were away. Indeed, they did not take everything. I've found my food bag among some rags on the floor. They've rummaged it, of course, but I guess they disliked the very look and smell of the lembas worse than Gollum did. It's scattered about, and some of it is trampled and broken, but I've gathered it together. It's not far short of what you got. But they've taken Faramir's food, and they've slashed up my water bottle. Well, there's no more to be said, said Sam. We've got enough to start on, but the water is going to be a bad business. But come, Mr. Frodo, off we go, or a whole lake of it won't do us any good. Not till you've had a mouthful, Sam, said Frodo. I won't budge. Here, take this elven cake, and drink that last drop in your bottle. The whole thing is quite hopeless, so it's no good worrying about tomorrow. It probably won't come. At last they started.
I mean, he's right. If it had been hopeless.
Cheerful nihilism, man. It'll get you through all kinds of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll do what I said I'd do. I don't think it's gonna work. I'm dead certain it's not gonna work, but I'll do it. Holy shit, it worked.
Just do the next thing in front of you that's as close as possible to the right thing to do.
Yep. At last they started. Down the ladder they climbed, and then Sam took it and laid it in the passage beside the huddled body of the fallen orc. The stair was dark, but on the rooftop the glare of the mountain could still be seen, though it was dying down now to a sullen red. They picked up 2 shields to complete their disguise, and then went on. Down the great stairway they plodded. The high chamber of the turret behind, where they had met again, seemed almost homely. They were out in the open again now, and terror ran along the walls. All might be dead in the tower of Kirathungol, but it was steeped in fear and evil still. At length they came to the to the door upon the outer court, and they halted. Even from where they stood, they felt the malice of the watchers beating on them, black silent shapes on either side of the gate through which the glare of Mordor dimly showed. As they threaded their way among the hideous bodies of the orcs, each step became more difficult. Before they even reached the archway, they were brought to a stand. To move an inch further was a pain and weariness to will and limb. Frodo had no strength for such a battle. He sank to the ground. "I can't go on, Sam," he murmured. "I'm going to faint. I don't know what's come over me." "I do, Mr. Frodo. Hold up now. It's the gate. There's some devilry there. But I got through, and I'm going to get out. Can't be more dangerous than before. Now for it." Sam drew out the elven glass of Galadriel again. As if to do honour to his hardihood and to grace with splendour his faithful brown hobbit hand that had done such deeds, the phial blazed forth suddenly, so that all the shadowy court was lit with a dazzling radiance like lightning, but it remained steady and did not pass. "Gilthoniel or Elbereth!" Sam cried. For why, he did not know. His thoughts sprang back suddenly to the elves in the Shire, and the song that drove away the Black Rider in the trees. "Aya, Elenion and Kalima!" cried Frodo once again behind him. The will of the watchers was broken with a suddenness like the snapping of a cord, and Frodo and Sam stumbled forward. Then they ran. Through the gate and past the great seated figures with their glittering eyes. There was a crack. The keystone of the arch crashed almost on their heels, and the wall above crumbled and fell in ruin. Only by a hair did they escape. A bell clanged, and from the watchers there went up a high and dreadful wail. Far up above in the darkness it was answered. Out of the black sky there came dropping like a bolt a winged shape rending the clouds with a ghastly shriek. "Oh, fuck."
What?
"Oh, fuck."
Ah, yes.
Sorry, my
Now
hair
you
looks
done
weird because it's brown and then it's green suddenly. And I keep glancing up and being like, what the fuck?
See, that doesn't weird me out because I'm extremely used to it. Your dye's been holding up very well, by the way.
It has indeed. I am quite pleased.
I found out that mine is blacklight reactive.
Ooh, how'd
We
you
went to
find that
the
out?
science museum and they have a deep sea exhibit with black lights, and so we walked in and I was like, so now I'm thinking about making myself a shirt that says "No one knows I'm a bioluminescent sea creature."
I love it. Chapter 2, The Land of Shadow. Sam had just wits enough left to thrust the phial back into his breast. "Run, Mr. Frodo!" he cried. No, not that way! There's a sheer drop over the wall. Follow me! Down the road from the gate they fled. In 50 paces, with a swift bend round a jutting bastion of the cliff, it took them out of sight from the tower. They had escaped for the moment. Cowering back against the rock, they drew breath, and then they clutched at their hearts. Perching now on the wall beside the ruined gate, the Nazgul sent out its deadly cries. All the cliffs echoed. In terror they stumbled on. Soon the road bent sharply eastward again and exposed them for a dreadful moment to view from the tower. As they flitted across, they glanced back and saw the great black shape upon the battlement. Then they plunged down between high rock walls in a cutting that fell steeply to join the Morgul way. They came to the way meeting. There was still no sign of orcs, nor of an answer to the cry of the Nazgul, but they knew that the silence would not last long. At any moment now the hunt would begin. "This won't do, Sam," said Frodo. "If we were real orcs, we ought to be dashing back to the tower, not running away. The first enemy we meet will know us. We must get off this road somehow." "But we can't," said Sam. "Not without wings." The eastern faces of the Efelduath were sheer, falling in cliff and precipice to the black trough that lay between them and the inner ridge. A short way beyond the way meeting, after another steep incline, a flying bridge of stone leaped over the chasm and bore the road across into the tumbled slopes and glens of the Morgai. With a desperate spurt, Frodo and Sam dashed along the bridge, but they had hardly reached its further end when they heard the hue and cry begin. Away behind them, now high above on the mountain side, loomed the tower of Cirith its stones glowing dully. Suddenly its harsh bell clanged again and then broke into a shattering peal. Horns sounded, and now from beyond the bridge end came answering cries. Down in the dark trough, cut off from the dying glare of Orodruin, Frodo and Sam could not see ahead, but already they heard the tramp of iron-shod feet, and upon the road there rang the swift clatter of hoofs. "Quick, Sam! Over we go!" cried Frodo. They scrambled onto the low parapet of the bridge. Fortunately, there was no longer any dreadful drop into the gulf, for the slopes of the Morgai had already risen almost to the level of the road, but it was too dark for them to guess the depth of the fall. "Well, here goes, Mr. Frodo," said Sam. "Goodbye." He let go. Frodo followed, and even as they fell, they heard the rush of horsemen sweeping over the bridge and the rattle of orc feet running up behind. But Sam would have laughed if he had dared. Half fearing a breaking plunge down onto unseen rocks, the hobbits landed in a drop of no more than a dozen feet, with a thud and a crunch into the last thing that they had expected, a tangle of thorny bushes. There Sam lay still, softly sucking a scratched hand. Softly sucking a scratched hand.
Splendid.
When the sound of hoof... What's that?
I can never do the vertical lisp thing.
Lateral lisp.
Lateral lisp. That thing. I can't do it.
I can do it if I say lasers.
I end up sounding like a bad Sean Connery impersonator. Lasers. I told you.
That was the best Sean Connery impersonation I've ever heard, and don't let anyone tell you different. When the sound of hoof and foot had passed, he ventured a whisper. "Bless me, Mr. Frodo, but I didn't know as anything grew in Mordor. But if I had a known, this is just what I'd have looked for. These thorns must be a foot long by the feel of them. They've stuck through everything I've got on. I wish I'd have put that mail shirt on." "Orc mail doesn't keep these thorns out," said Frodo. "Not even a leather jerkin is any good." They had a struggle to get out of the thicket. The thorns and briars were as tough as wire and as clinging as claws. Their cloaks were rent and tattered before they broke free at last. Now down we go, Sam, Frodo whispered. Down into the valley, quick, and then turn northward as soon as ever we can. Day was coming again in the world outside, and far beyond the glooms of Mordor the sun was climbing over the eastern rim of Middle-earth. But here all was still dark as night. The mountains smoldered, and its fires were out. The glare faded from the cliffs. The easterly wind that had been blowing ever since they left Ithilien now seemed dead. Slowly and painfully they clambered down, groping, stumbling, scrambling among rock and briar and dead wood in the blind shadows, down and down until they could go no further. At length they stopped and sat side by side, their backs against a boulder. Both were sweating. If Shagrat himself was to offer me a glass of water, I'd shake his hand, said Sam. Don't say such things, said Frodo. It only makes it worse. Then he stretched himself out, dizzy and weary, and he spoke no more for a while. At last, with a struggle, he got up again. To his amazement, he found that Sam was asleep. Wake up, Sam, he said. Come on, it's time we made another effort. Sam scrambled to his feet. Well, I never, he said. I must have dropped off. It's a long time, Mr. Frodo, since I had a proper sleep. My eyes just closed down on their own. Frodo now led the way, northward as near as he could guess, among the stones and boulders lying thick at the bottom of the great ravine. But presently he stopped again. It's no good, Sam, he said. I can't manage it. This mail shirt, I mean. Not in my present state. Even my mithril coat seemed heavy when I was tired. This is far heavier. And what's the use of it? We shan't win through by fighting. But we may have some to do, said Sam. And there's knives, and stray arrows. That golem isn't dead, for one thing. I don't like to think of you with naught but a bit of leather between you and a stab in the dark. Look here, Sam, dear lad, said Frodo. I am tired, weary. I haven't a hope left, but I have to go on trying to get to the mountain as long as I can move. The ring is enough. This extra weight is killing me. It must go. But don't think I'm ungrateful. I hate to think of the foul work you must have had among the bodies to find it for me. Don't talk about it, Mr. Frodo. Bless you. I'd carry you on my back if I could. Foreshadowing. Let it go, then. Frodo laid aside his cloak and took off the orc mail and flung it away. He shivered a little. What I really need is something warm, he said. Sorry, I've just realized that in the movies they give him his clothes back. When he's standing at the cracks of doom, he's wearing his hobbit clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Maybe
they take...
Yeah.
What?
Maybe we're meant to assume that some orc was wearing linen.
I don't think we're meant to assume that they stole linen hobbit clothes from an orc. I think we're meant to assume that the orcs hadn't torn his clothes to shreds and just had them kind of over with his pack, and he put them back on.
That makes sense. However, what that means is when we picture Frodo at the cracks of doom this time, pretty sure he's naked. Well, he's wearing the... Because eventually he'll be like, I can't stand this jerkin anymore. And they strip it off him and he just wears the elvish cloak. But
well, there you go then.
Yeah.
And maybe also the hairy pants?
He might have removed the pants as well. We'll find out. Eventually. It takes a while. But yeah. It might
Stay with us to find out if Frodo's wearing
his fucking cloak.
I mean, look.
Yep.
On the list of important things at that particular moment, pants were not high.
Nope. And it's possible that hobbits don't have as many nudity taboos as we do.
Could be.
All right. Let it go then. Frodo laid aside his cloak and took off the orc mail and flung it away. He shivered a little. What I really need is something warm, he said. It's gone cold, or else I've caught a chill. You can have my cloak, Mr. Frodo, said Sam. He unslung his pack and took out the elven cloak. How's this, Mr. Frodo? He said. You wrap that orc rag close round you and put the belt outside it, and this can go over all. It don't look quite orc fashion, but it'll keep you warmer, and I dare say it'll keep you from harm better than any other gear. It was made by the lady. Frodo took the cloak and fastened the brooch. Oh, that's better, he said. I feel much lighter. I can go on now, but this blind dark seems to be getting into my heart. As I lay in prison, Sam, I tried to remember the Brandywine and Woody End and the water running through the mill at Hobbiton, but I can't see them now. There now, Mr. Frodo, it's you that's talking of water this time, said Sam. If only the lady could see us or hear us, I'd say to her, Your ladyship, all we want is light and water, just clean water and plain daylight, better than any jewels, begging your pardon. But it's a long way to Lorien. Sam sighed and waved his hand toward the heights of the Ephel-Duath, now only to be guessed as a deeper blackness against the black sky. They started off again. They had not gone far when Frodo paused. There's a black rider over us, he said. I can feel it. We had better keep still for a while. Crouched under a great boulder, they sat facing back westward and did not speak for some time. Then Frodo breathed a sigh of relief. It's past, he said. They stood up, and then they both stared in wonder. Away to their left, southward, against a sky that was turning grey, the peaks and high ridges of the great range began to appear, dark and black, visible shapes. Light was growing behind them. Slowly it crept toward the north. There was battle far above in the high spaces of the air. The billowing clouds of Mordor were being driven back, their edges tattering as a wind out of the living world came up and swept the fumes and smokes toward the dark land of their home. Under the lifting skirts of the dreary canopy, dim light leaked into Mordor like pale morning through the grimed window of a prison. Look at it, Mr. Frodo, said Sam. Look at it. The wind's changed. Something's happening. He's not having it all his own way. His darkness is breaking up out in the world there. Oh, I wish I could see what was going on. It was the morning of the 15th of March, and over the vale of Anduin the sun was rising above the eastern shadow, and the southwest wind was blowing. Theoden lay dying on the Pelennor fields. As Frodo and Sam stood and gazed, the rim of light spread all along the line of the Ephel-Duath, and then they saw a shape moving at a great speed out of the west, at first only a black speck against the glimmering strip above the mountain tops, but growing, until it plunged like a bolt into the dark canopy and passed high above them. As it went, it sent out a long, shrill cry, the voice of a Nazgul. But this cry no longer held any terror for them. It was a cry of woe and dismay, ill tidings for the Dark Tower. The Lord of the Ringwraiths had met his doom. Doom!
Doom, 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 doom.
Doom, 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 doom. What did I tell you? Something's happening, cried Sam. The war's going well, said Shagrat, but Gorbag, he wasn't so sure. And he was right there, too. Things are looking up, Mr. Frodo. Haven't you got some hope now? Well, no, not much, Sam, Frodo sighed. That's away beyond the mountains. We're going east, not west. And I'm so tired. And the ring is so heavy, Sam, and I begin to see it in my mind all the time, like a great wheel of fire. Sam's quick spirits sank again at once. He looked at his master anxiously, and he took his hand. Come, Mr. Frodo, he said. I've got one thing I wanted, a bit of light. Enough to help us, yet I guess it's dangerous too. Try a bit further, and then we'll lie close and have a rest. But take a morsel to eat now, a bit of the elves' food. It may hearten you. Sharing a wafer of lembas, and munching it as best they could with their parched mouths, Frodo and Sam plodded on. The light, though no more than a grey dusk, was now enough for them to see that they were deep in the valley between the mountains. It sloped up gently northward, and at its bottom went the bed of a now dry and withered stream. Beyond its stony course they saw a beaten path that wound its way under the feet of the westward cliffs. Had they known, they could have reached it quicker, for it was a track that left the main Morgul road at the western bridge end, and went down by a long stair cut in the rock to the valley's bottom. It was used by patrols or by messengers going swiftly to lesser posts and strongholds north away, between Cirith Ungol and the narrows of Eisenmouth, the iron jaws of Carach Angren. It was perilous for the hobbits to use such a path, but they needed speed, and Frodo felt that he could not face the toil of scrambling among the boulders or in the trackless glens of the Morgai. And he judged that northward was maybe the way that their hunters would least expect them to take. The road east to the plain, or the pass back westward, those they would first search most thoroughly. Only when he was well north of the tower did he mean to turn and seek for some way to take him east on the last desperate stage of his journey. So now they crossed the stony bed and took to the Orc path, and for some time they marched along it. The cliffs at their left were overhung, and they could not be seen from above, but the path made many bends, and at each bend they gripped their sword hilts and went forward cautiously. The light grew no stronger, for Orad Ruin was still belching forth a great fume that, beaten upwards by the opposing airs, mounted higher and higher until it reached a region above the wind and spread in an immeasurable roof, whose central pillar rose out of the shadows beyond their view. They had trudged for more than an hour when they heard a sound that brought them to a halt. Unbelievable, but unmistakable. Water trickling out of a gully on the left, so sharp and narrow that it looked as if the black cliff had been cloven by some huge axe. Water came dripping down. The last remains, maybe, of some sweet rain gathered from sunlit seas, but ill-fated to fall at last upon the walls of the black land and wander fruitless down into the dust. Here it came out of the rock in a little falling streamlet, and flowed across the path, and turning south ran away swiftly to be lost among the dead stones. Sam sprang towards it. If ever I see the lady again, I will tell her, he cried. Light, and now water. Then he stopped. Let me drink first, Mr. Frodo, he said. All right, but there's room enough for two. I didn't mean that, said Sam. I mean, if it's poisonous, or something that will show its badness quick, well, better me than you, master, if you understand me. I do, but I think we'll trust our luck together, Sam, or our blessing. Still, be careful now if it's very cold. The water was cool, but not icy, and it had an unpleasant taste, at once bitter and oily, or so they would have said at home. Here it seemed beyond all praise, and beyond fear or prudence. They drank their fill, and Sam replenished his water bottle. After that Frodo felt easier, and they went on for several miles, until the broadening of the road and the beginning of a rough wall along its edge warned them that they were drawing near to another orc hold. This is where we turn aside, Sam, said Frodo. and we must turn east. He sighed as he looked at the gloomy ridges across the valley. I have just about enough strength left to find some hole away up there. And then I must rest a little. Boom. We're almost at 8, and that's a section break. And
Perfect.
anyway, they've got light and water. Yay!
They got light and water.
Light and water.
I saw a fan theory that was talking about the idea that hobbits are like super poison resistant. Like they're obsessed with mushrooms, but they'll even eat the poisonous ones. And then the whole thing with no one can survive being in Mordor is like it's so contaminated, the air and the water, that like humans would die. But the hobbits are just like, oh, this doesn't taste very good.
This isn't great. Yeah, that makes sense. And since corruption is poison of the mind, they're resistant to that too.
See, there you go.
Oh, good stuff. It's going to be hard to riff for the next few weeks, though, because the path through Gorgoroth is just so brutal.
Yeah.
It was very important to me when I was going through all the cancer stuff.
Yeah.
To know that Frodo and Sam had been through shit that hurt that much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All of it. It was, yeah.
Well, we don't have to riff. We can just read.
We can read. We can enjoy. We can maybe riff on the alliterative language that Tolkien insists on using in various spots. Because
I can do my Sean Connery impression.
We didn't finish watching Return of the King this year when we did our New Year's Lord of the Rings watch. We made it about halfway through Return of the King. More than halfway. I feel like we'd almost made it to the Cracks of Doom, and we stopped because it was late or something, and then we never picked it up again because I would have had to insist. It's usually me insisting, and I'm not as attached to the ending of the film as the ending of the books. It's just not very satisfying.
Well, I think they did their best, but
yeah,
it was a tough one to end.
I would have been more forgiving if it had been more of like the Willow ending. In fact, that's my brain AU. Like, so if there's no scouring, if Saruman's dead, then what I would like to have seen would be the 4 hobbits showing up expecting nothing and having everybody be like, oh my god, they're home! And they'd be like, what the hell? And they walk into the Green Dragon and Gimli is there telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, standing on a table doing the Balrog thing, and Legolas is sitting by corroborating and playing music or something, and our boys are like, oh, okay. And then they could like have that local notoriety that was so important, without necessarily having to kick out the ruffians.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they made it so sad, and it wasn't sad.
Well, on that note,
yes.
I'm gonna go measure my sweater and see if it's long enough to start putting sleeves on. And you're going to have a mustache?
Yes.
All nostrils.
All nostrils.
It's like the cereal.
Welcome to the House
Salisbury's.
of Bombadil. Yeah, good times. Okay, I love you. I see you next week.
I love you too. I'll see you next week.
Cuidado.
Yeah, mas.